Hi there, folks. This is Tony for A Minute to Midnight, coming to you from New Zealand on an unseasonably cold morning here, actually. Like, we're supposed to be mid-spring, second half of spring, and past frosts. Well, this morning we got a good frost, and it's wiped out my tomatoes and things, which I planted a couple of weeks ago, so I'm not so happy about that. But you guys over in the Northern Hemisphere are heading towards winter. We're supposed to be heading away from it. So it's a bit of just an introduction to say that's how my morning started. But anyway, in a couple of days, by the way, folks, I am going to be picking up Holly from the airport in Auckland. She's coming over from America, and so I'm really looking forward to that. Those of you who know that my wife Holly's been getting medical treatment in America, so I'm really looking forward to her being back here with me in a couple of days. So having said that, by way of introduction, I have with me today Ralph Strean. Now, Ralph has been on the show a couple of times, probably most notably for his filmmaking, and The Ark in the Darkness was the last one. But Ralph, we're on a totally different bent today. We're not doing your filmmaking. We've got something else to talk about. Anyway, welcome.
Hey, it's great to be here again, Tony. Thank you so much for having me, as always. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because, a lot of people have donated to our ministry. I want to say to
just mention the name of that ministry quickly.
Oh, sure, Sevenfold Films.
Yeah.
And we've made a couple of movies, big movies that came out in actual theaters here in America on the whole topic of evolution versus creationism. And it's funny that you should mention that because today's topic is going to be not completely, a little bit different. Some of my audience who ventures over here to listen to this, I'm asking you guys to prepare yourselves. I'm going to get into a little bit of politics, and I just hope that everybody listening will just relax, take a seat, just be willing to hear what I have to say. Think about the proverb that says, not to answer a matter before you've heard it, so that you're not considered foolish. Please just go along with me here in this hour or less, because I believe God has shown me some very interesting things that are going on in the world, and perhaps maybe tuned me in a little bit to what I think is about to happen here soon. And I have learned, I have grown over the past few years, especially in this area of my understanding, and I hope that I can impart some wisdom upon you guys so that you can do the same thing. Really what I think is involved here is spiritual discernment, biblical understanding, and the willingness to be able to admit that you could be wrong about things, even views that you've held for decades. And, with my ministry, people have given us, I want to say, collectively over $1 million to make the couple of films that I've made. They trust our ministry. They trust the research that we do when it comes to the topic of evolution and how people are being lied to. And I hope that they won't scoff at what I'm about to share, because equally, we have researched this stuff out. We have, especially here in America, where I am, it's especially critical to us over here that we figure out to some degree what's going on. And yet at the same time, I want to also encourage us all as believers to not get too distracted by politics either, which I know is kind of a tough thing to do today because, look at the direction of the world, look at where we're going, look at what we think is biblically happening and about to happen. Very hard, right? It's almost like we see a convergence of politics meeting biblical prophecy. So in a way, you can't really divorce yourself from politics, but at the same time, you shouldn't be devoting all of your time. Some of us are that's all we're doing is we're just watching podcasts and we're checking out YouTube feeds, and we're just so immersed in it, especially in the election cycle. So anyway, with that introduction there, I'm asking you all, please just to hear me out. This has been a long time coming, and Tony is kind of going to be the first host to really ever hear me or allow me to kind of venture into this arena. I want to start off by saying I have been an ardent patriot, a conservative, a Christian, of course. I have just fully been on MAGA and the Trump train. What really had me was when Trump came out in 2016. And he said that if a woman commits infanticide, which essentially is an abortion, that she should be punished. And it blew my mind. I'd never heard a politician dare say anything like that. It was shocking. It was a turning point for me. And I thought, boy, I'm already a Republican, but I really think I can get behind this guy. I don't think any of these other politicians would have the nerve to say something like that. That's amazing. It's completely true. If you murder a baby, there should be consequences. Well, I have, ever since that point, been like many of you listening, where I've just been, every election cycle has been, this is the most important election ever, right? We've all heard the rhetoric every time, and of course we believe it. Look at the opposition to the Republican Party. It's insanity, right? It's wokeness, it's transgenderism for children, it's abortion on demand, it's men and women's bathrooms, even in the schools. It's just the most just disturbing stuff. And it's easy for all of us to get caught up in it and say, you know what, you got to do whatever you got to do to make sure that those people are not in control of our country. And it's been this way, if you really think about it, guys. It's been this way election after election after election. It is always going to be the most critical, most important election of our lifetime. It has been that way since I can really remember. I'm 44. I started paying attention to politics even as a teenager, but I want to say I got really serious when Obama showed up on the scene in 2008. So 2008, 12, 16, 20, and now 24 have all been in terms of conversations I've had with my friends, family, has always been the most important consequential election. And I'm sure, I have no doubt, if we're still here in 2028, it'll be the same. So with all of that said, guys, I have made a major turn, a major change recently, and I do believe that it's a direction that God has been pushing me into. As I've been studying Bible prophecy, I have realized that all is not what it seems. Come with me now, because many of you will agree with me that we have been lied to since school with evolution, right? And if you think about it, the same people who would be willing to lie to children, saying that there is no God, to destroy them through drugs and music and movies and all the things that they get turned on to in school. These same people, are we really so crazy to think that they wouldn't lie to us in other aspects of our lives? Are we really so crazy to think that we as adults haven't been ourselves hoodwinked in other areas? And this is what I have had to face in my life, and I'm asking you to do the same. I am afraid that even though it's difficult to say this, I know how hard it is for people to hear this, but Donald Trump and JD Vance have been, in my opinion, my research, my understanding, I believe that they have been thrust upon us by the same deep state who is behind the Democrat Party, who is essentially ran and operated by the global satanic cabal that many of you are now becoming aware of. And I know this is probably so upsetting to some of you to hear that you're probably ready to turn the video off right now, hearing me say this. Some of you might want to unsubscribe and stop following me. I hope I'm not right. I'm not saying that this is a fact. I'm just saying that from the way I view it, it certainly seems to be the case. I want to spend a little bit of time first here going into some political things that I can point out to you that should start making it pretty obvious that there's something wrong. And then I want to swing over into the biblical prophetic aspects of what I think is about to happen. So I'd like to first start by saying that Donald Trump, as I pointed out, started off in 2016, having the staunchest, strongest pro-life stance I had ever heard of a politician dare to speak. And now in 2023 and 2024, he has completely and utterly flip-flopped to the point where he is even calling out Ron DeSantis in Florida for the heartbeat bill, saying that 6 weeks and beyond a ban on abortion, which of course I believe all abortion should be banned, but even 6 weeks and beyond, that's just too soon, and he actually called it a terrible mistake that he was making. To make matters worse, on October 15th, he was in a town hall meeting. I can find links and give them to Tony later to put in the description if you want, but he just recently said 2 weeks ago that he thinks that we should all have common sense, and he slipped into his statement that we should not have transgender surgeries for children without parental consent. And he already had the audience clapping for all of the other things he had said, so he snuck that one in there without parental consent, as if it's ever okay for a child to be mutilated through some kind of transgender surgery. So Trump is just these two examples alone. I could give you a list of 20, but these two critical examples alone should be enough to show you that Trump is absolutely flip-flopping. And many of you are going to say, well, he's probably flip-flopping because he's just trying to garner more support from the left. He wants to absolutely win this election. He'll say anything that he can, blah, blah, blah. But guys, you have to remember, when your words as the former president of the United States are so powerful that they can sway people's lives. There could be young women listening who are contemplating an abortion right now, and when they hear Trump and the Republican Party, who they know are supported by Christians, all get on board with this nonsense of it might actually be okay for abortions to some degree.
Well, Ralph, can I just interject for a second? Right back at the Republican National Conference, a couple of days after Trump had his ear injury, well, alleged ear injury, the Trump family hijacked the RNC and basically shut down anyone that had a really strong anti-abortion stance. They were not allowed to speak. They were not allowed to go the due process of normal. So this happened all the way back then. And, of course, now you've got Melania Trump coming out very strongly speaking pro-choice as well. So that's all I wanted to add. I won't hold you up anymore.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. Wow, yeah, that makes sense. See, according to what I think that God has been showing me as well is I'm sorry to have to say this, everybody. I know I have family, friends, loved ones, even neighbors who might be listening to this, and Trump is not who you think he is. So let me then pivot now to the guy who he appointed as his VP pick, JD Vance. Don't forget that JD Vance in 2016 was the guy who famously said, "Let's vote for Hillary Clinton even if we have to hold our nose." Now, no conservative Christian would ever, under any circumstances, want to vote for Hillary Clinton or suggest such a thing. Ever. Here he is. He was pushing that 8 years ago. And now suddenly he has become the VP pick from Trump. And you have to ask yourself, what on earth is Trump thinking? I know many of you listening, when you heard that JD Vance was his VP pick, I know that many of you were shocked and that you've spent the last months just trying to slowly acclimate yourself to this, to the point now where maybe you don't even remember this. But I want you to remember how weird it was for most of you when you first heard that JD Vance, of all people, was his pick. JD Vance, who was, if you don't know this, who was essentially the acolyte of Peter Thiel, the billionaire homosexual behind such controversial and evil things like Palantir, which the government uses to spy on people. Okay, Peter Thiel donated $15 million in one go to JD Vance to help boost his political efforts. Okay, you got to understand that JD Vance is not a Christian for sure. I can tell you that right now. I don't even think he's a good Catholic, whatever that means. Okay, but JD Vance is not a good dude. Okay, he's coming from a very I believe very Kabbalic background. Okay, these people are all in on basically the Billionaires Club plan of how the future of the country and the world are going to go down, and that's a whole other topic that I could get into separately at some point. I feel like I've got 20 hours of stuff here that I want to spit out, but I just want to help you understand that it's not all is well here, guys. Okay, what you are, I guess, maybe what you could essentially call this video, maybe it would be something along the lines of, we're being set up, we're being played. Essentially, us Christians, we are being set up. We're every election cycle, but this one obviously, especially, I would say, is about how can you manipulate people into setting up a hero and voting for him and making him your point man by creating such anarchy on the other side that you will get them to put aside their morals, their values, their Christian principles in order to stop the bad that could happen if the opposition gets in. And what I'm trying to say is that you got to start waking up like I have and realize that that's the game. That's the game that this is. Okay?
Yeah.
And this is going to help you now to understand that what we're about to get into, in my personal opinion, I don't know, Tony, where you are on this. I'm pretty sure you're probably very similar, but I think we're about to we're entering into the latter days for sure. Yeah. And we are about to, I believe, 2025, 26, 27, we're about to lay the infrastructure for the Antichrist system. We are listening to the politicians and the technocrats and the globalists of the world getting together right now, openly discussing how they're going to create centralized digital currencies so that they can control, spy, monitor every person in the world, not just the United States, not just whatever given country, the entire world. They're laying this out. They've been experimenting with a lot of this stuff in other countries. And ladies and gentlemen, it is now here upon us. And I want you to understand that Donald Trump, wittingly or unwittingly, I believe it's wittingly. I would like to hope unwittingly. But Donald Trump and his team are, in my opinion, going to be who you needed, if you're the satanic cabal, to get the United States of America to comply. It's called manufactured consent. They're going to get us to consent to a central bank digital currency and other forms of awful one world government steps they're going to take by getting us to first believe in and follow a man who we think is our hero, and then he's going to help to take us down that path. And if you think that sounds like that, oh, Donald Trump would never get behind that, let me give you one example. One example is that Donald Trump said that he was fully on board with biometrics for traveling. He wants to see them vamp up a full biometric system where they're scanning you and they're getting your face data, your I mean, forget just your fingerprints. Last time I was at the airport, a lot of my followers know I made the film the Genesis Paradise Lost back in 2017-18. It was a stereoscopic film. That means it was made in actual 3D where you put the glasses on. I am very familiar with what stereoscopy is and stereoscopic hardware. And when I was at the airport 6 months ago on what I told my wife I hope is my last flight I ever take, I saw that they have 3D stereoscopic cameras at the airport now. So when I walked up to the gentleman who is checking out my passport, I'm looking at this and I said to him, what do you have a stereoscopic camera for? And why are you taking pictures of us in 3D? And he said, oh, don't worry. We don't save them. It doesn't go anywhere. And meanwhile, I'm looking up and you see this like pipe going from the thing up into the ceiling. It's like, oh, absolutely, you're saving this. But I want you guys to understand that this is happening now. They're rolling it out slowly. And I hope I'm wrong, but I believe that Donald Trump is the Trojan horse that has been selected to be able to get us to get behind somebody who can get us to accept absurdities, who can, again, this is manufactured consent. They are manufacturing crises, in my opinion, that are going to cause us to agree to things we would not normally agree to. When is that going to kick off? I don't know. It could be the end of this year. It could be 2025, 26. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't even know if Trump is going to win, but I think what could happen potentially is that they're going to show that there was great election fraud and Donald Trump overcame even that. There were so many votes. It was a landslide victory. That's my guess. But look, we saw what happened with the last election. Many of us thought that too back then, and it didn't happen. But here's my point. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because either way, the same people who are pulling the strings are behind the scenes. It's just my viewpoint that it's going to be Donald Trump this time, because how do you get a bunch of Americans who are all about liberty and freedom to comply with crazy
Well,
control?
you get someone like Elon Musk as your front man standing there with his Starlink and his Neuralink and all of this, and then talking like a champion of free speech. So that's how he's got people on board with him. So, now Elon Musk's a good guy. Hey, but wait a minute. Isn't he the guy that's setting up the control grid in the sky and wants to put chips in your brain? And now he's out there and, all of a sudden he's a champion. And then you have Stephen Schwarzman from Blackstone backing Donald Trump as well. And he's the guy that's been responsible for putting people out of homes all across America by Blackstone buying up property after property after property and so on. And so he's behind the Trump machine as well. And people don't want to hear all this stuff. They see what they want to see of Donald Trump, and he survived assassination attempts and all of that. But I agree with you totally. I believe Trump is, and I've believed this all the way along for years. Like, I knew Trump was going to be the president in 2016. Absolutely. He had no doubt and stuff there, which I won't go into, but I'm with you here. I agree. Trump is part of the machine, just like Kamala Harris and the lefts are, and the whole Hegelian dialectic is having the left and the right, and then they use it to maneuver people to where they want you to ultimately go, which is neither extreme left or extreme right. It's something else that they've got in mind. Whether you call it communism or fascism or whatever, it's a supranational kind of governmental level in control of everything, and that's where I think it's going.
I couldn't have said it better. I couldn't have said it better. Absolutely. Elon Musk was one of the people on my list to bring up here in this conversation. Absolutely. You've got the technocracy of technocracy's nightmare in Elon Musk. I mean, this guy, it's no mistake that he is at front and center of Trump's campaign. Think about what this implies, audience. Okay, brothers and sisters, think about what this implies. You've got Trump, who is already about some kind of a serious biometric control mechanism in place to govern and monitor people's comings and goings in and out of America and the world abroad. You've got the central bank digital currency, which is on the forefront. I mean, the feds are chomping at the bit to roll this thing out because it's absolute dominance and control over Americans and the world, okay? But now you've also got Elon Musk, who is unabashedly out there talking about all these different aspects of what clearly would be a part of the mark of the beast system. I mean, some of the stuff they're talking about is right out of Revelation and Daniel. This is not a mistake. You are at the beginning. You are watching biblical history start to unfold here at the end. This is the beginning of incredible prophecy. You have to get to the point where you have the infrastructure in place where people can't buy or sell or trade, and by extension, they can't travel without agreeing to this global political religious system. And that is absolutely what we're getting into. And I was on the hopium train like so many other Christians. I was even following Q. I was into all these things because I wanted so desperately to believe it. I heard about the pedophile rings. I absolutely believe that's a real thing, regardless of the Q stuff or not. And I just thought, man, wouldn't it be so great if there was really a takedown of this satanic cabal? I already knew what the Bible says about the end. I already know that it's a very dark and wicked time at the end, and I had no delusions that we were going to usher in like an amillennialist believes, some kind of golden age. I never believed any of that. I always knew it was bad, but what I was hoping for, holding on to, was the hope that maybe there's still some light here. Maybe because not all nations, despite what most Christians believe, not all nations get exactly in line behind the Antichrist. Okay, there are a few holdouts. Now, in the end, at the very end, God will gather all nations around Israel. Okay, they will all become his enemy, but not immediate. And so my holdout was just hoping that maybe God would still use America right up until the end. Now, I don't want to get sidetracked into this whole topic, but I'll briefly say that for those of you who believe that America is Mystery Babylon, I'm sorry to disagree with you here, respectfully, but Mystery Babylon is a city. It's not a country. Mystery Babylon has 7 hills. There's one place in the world that has 7 hills. Mystery Babylon is called the Great Whore. There's only one city that's ever been called a Great Whore in the Old Testament, okay? All of this is around Jerusalem, and that's a whole topic that we can get into later. But America has not specifically been prophesied that it would be destroyed like many Christians think, because they think America is Mystery Babylon. And now, am I saying America is not evil? No, obviously America is exporter of much of the great evil in the world. I absolutely understand that. But I'm just saying that these are the reasons why I've been so hopeful that maybe some good could still happen here. But unfortunately, what I think is really, truly happening is that we're getting played, guys. We're getting played. We've been set up. And there's so much information. I mean, think about this. Let me ask you this, for those of you who've been listening to all this and you're still skeptical. When I go around to my Christian friends and I bring this up to them, this is the one thing that all of them will stop and take pause and say, you know what? Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. You know what that is? I don't know if I can use this word. I hope you don't have to bleep this out. But it's the vaccines with Trump. Okay? Like, when you ask a Christian, can you explain to me why to this day?
Just be careful how you talk about it now. That's all.
Okay.
Careful with your wording. Yep.
Okay, gotcha. Yep. Okay. Well, I say to people, to this day, he won't deny any of that, any of the operational stuff that he did. We all know what it's called. And this is after he was there's a video released, you can find it if you go look it up, where he's talking to RFK Jr. and he is admitting that those things are bad and that he and JFK Jr. have known that for decades. And yet here he is with Dr. You-know-who in 2019 or 2020. I say 2019 because You-know-who was actually part of that whole thing where they had projected out what they were going to do, right? You know what I'm referring to? Yes, and your audience probably does too.
Well, let's Event 201 and all of that, we can probably say that. Yeah.
Okay, great. So 2020 happens, and who does Trump go along with? He goes along with the same guy who is behind this exact thing that they did. I'm trying to be careful with my words. Back in the 80s with the AIDS crisis.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a second run on that same playbook. And Trump was obviously the guy who had every capability to put in charge and do whatever he needed to do. But he runs along with Dr. You-Know-Who, and to this day, he still won't deny to anyone anywhere. In fact, he is still pushing for boosters and other things. And I'm telling you, how does that to you as a Christian, knowing what we know now? I understand that a lot of you were duped at the beginning, okay? I understand that. But a lot of you have woken up to what that's doing with myocarditis, with turbo cancers and other things. Now explain to me how today he still can't denounce any of that. And I'll posit to you this. I'll see my question. I'll raise it one too. What are the implications of not denying that? Well, it sets up the future for if they roll something out again.
Well, you know, that catastrophic contagion thing they practiced out, I'm pretty sure the date they gave for the theoretical fantasy rollout of another pandemic was I think February 2025. So,
was it? See, that exactly lines up with what I'm saying. You've got to have, it looks to me, okay, I've been saying this to my wife, it's a convergence that we've been seeing. We're seeing a convergence of all of these agendas in political maneuvering from all these evil world organizations, converging with biblical prophecy. I don't think it's a mistake or coincidence that we're getting near the 2,000-year mark of Jesus's resurrection. And I know a lot of you, like me, hold to the Hosea prophecy. Some of you might not. I respect opinions on all sides on that one, so I know that it's a little bit murky and difficult. But, if you believe that the age of grace is a 2,000-year period, and that 1,000 years is a day is 1,000 years, and we're going to come up on the third day here when Jesus comes back and restores Israel, then you're thinking, gee, this is pretty coincidental timing that the evil satanic cabal wants to take over the whole world and have it in their back pocket by 2030. Wow, just a few years ahead of the anniversary. Well, I say a few years. It could be 2 or 3 years, depending on which view you take of the actual resurrection point of Jesus. But my point is that, guys, brothers and sisters in Christ, try to divorce yourself from emotions. Okay, this is the game they're playing with you.
Yeah.
They're trying to get you so stirred up about the opposition that you will put aside everything and you'll go out and you'll vote for a man who has now, in the past year, gone completely against what you hold sacred and valued in the Word of God.
And I think it's pretty much important, Ralph, that we just say to people here that neither of us are saying you should go out and vote for Kamala Harris. I get annoyed when people assume that when we say this, that we're trying to campaign for them, which is absolutely not. I mean, Harris is as evil, and so folks,
absolutely.
You just got to realize that's not where we're coming from.
And I've run into that too. I totally agree, Tony. It's a great point to bring up. And look, I get it. Some of you are going to say, guys, what you're not realizing is that a vote thrown away for Trump is a vote for Kamala Harris. And what I'm trying to help you understand is that that's not lost on us that you feel that way. What you're not understanding is what we're saying to you is that they're all part of the same satanic cabal. It doesn't matter who you vote for. Did it matter in 2020 when, let's say, 70 or 80% of the country voted for Trump? No, they still did what they did. And now let's take it a step further, understanding that Trump seems to be in on this whole thing with them. Well, that now would make perfect sense if you're trying to set up a superhero. You've got to roll out assassinations on this guy, which, think about this, guys, okay? This is my first time saying this publicly anywhere, so I know that I'm going to have some supporters who are going to think I'm crazy for this. But
be careful again how you say it.
Okay.
Yep.
That whole situation that happened, a couple months ago now? I lost track of it. That, even according to their own political pundits, doesn't make any sense. And they've had to blame the nonsensical nature of it on, oh, well, it was the Secret Service and it was blah, 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 who even knows what they did.
Can you show me anyone that's had an injury that doesn't have a scar?
Yeah. Well, did you see Joe Rogan just a few days ago had him on his podcast, and Joe Rogan says something to the effect, because I don't watch Joe Rogan, I just watched this clip, but he said something to the effect of, hey, what about your ear? And Trump immediately pivots away from it. He immediately goes into he makes one comment about it. He just, and then he quickly pivots over to, hey, you know, the greatest MMA fighter that both you and I like. And then Rogan's back onto MMA fighting. And it's like, see, he doesn't want anybody to focus on the obvious gaping wound that should be on his ear. And I'm sorry for those of you who are like me, how I've been ultra MAGA, super conservative, Trump, Trump for the rest of our lives, kinds of people like I have been. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to be the bearer of the bad news here, but it doesn't make any sense if you divorce yourself from your political bias. If you get away from all that stuff and you just have a level head, there's a reason why Trump has to defend the insane job that the quote-unquote Secret Service did. Okay, all the crazy things that occurred that day. I'm trying to be careful with my word. I could actually go into detail. I'm trying not to because I don't want to be censored, but that I could do a whole hour or two of video of just on how absurd it is for any of us to actually believe that stuff wasn't staged. And let me even say this too. For those of you who followed any of the QAnon stuff, there are Q deltas that actually told you that he's going to do the fight fist with the blue suit he was wearing, that there was going to be potential assassination attempts and things like that. I mean, like, if talk about staging stuff and pre-scripted stuff, they're taking you into where they want you to go because you are so easily manipulated. And that's what I'm trying to get us all away from, brothers and sisters. Let's stop being manipulated. Yeah, go ahead.
And let's not forget the false prophets in the Christian circles and the big names that are also pushing this nonsense. 250 more years of glorious times for America. And, the Lance Wallnows and the Kenneth Copelands and all of these type of people, that the super big names that are deceiving people as well.
Yep, absolutely. It's guys, This takes spiritual discernment. This takes biblical understanding, and it takes the ability to gain the maturity to be able to step back and to ask yourselves with humility before God, Lord, what areas in my life have I been lied to? Like I said at the beginning, many of you already get that lies, major, serious, insane lies do occur. You agree with me that we're lied to from the time we're kids about evolution and creation. We're lied to about God even existing. I mean, think about how absolutely disgustingly devastating that is for all of us who grew up with that. I did. I remember how crushing it was to be told there is no God, right? So guys, I'm just trying to ask you with humility to step back and reassess, reevaluate what's going on. There's too many problems with this stuff. There's too many biblical, prophetic coincidences. Okay, we're heading into bad times. Now, I actually hold to, this might shock a lot of you, I actually hold to a pre-tribulation raptional view. I used to be post-trib, which means that I have the ability to highly respect my brothers and sisters who have a post-trib view. I totally get where they're coming from. I totally understand why they feel that way. But regardless of whether you're pre or you're post-trib, I have no doubt that our toes are going to be dipped into the waters of insanity that are coming. Even if you do hold a pre-tribulation rapture view, I don't believe it's going to be a bed of roses for us right up until we're plucked out of here. I think that we're on the brink of seeing this entire infrastructure laid out. And the question on my mind is, how far into that are we going to get before the harpazo happens? But make no mistake, guys, it's here. It's at the door. You're on the threshold of it. And I just wanted to, if anything today, just help to open your eyes to the fact that Satan is the controller and father of this current world, and it's not God yet. And you are surrounded by an absolute ocean of lies coming at you from almost every direction. You were lied to so much that I have despaired over this stuff. I've tried to fight off even kind of forms of depression, just trying not to think about, my goodness, how is it that we live in just nothing but lies like we do, and it's so pervasive.
Can I just interject a little bit on the rapture thing, because this has been in my mind a lot lately. I'm constantly seeing a barrage of war of comments in my videos, either one way or the other, and it's just like, oh my gosh, if people would stop focusing on it, let's just live like the rapture could be tomorrow, or it could be at the end of the tribulation, and God knows when it's going to be, and just be prepared to go through whatever you're going to have to go through until God says this is the time. And people just are overly focused on it, and then they attack anyone else that has a different view because everyone's absolutely sure their one's correct. And I see it just honestly, it's just both sides are so sure they're correct, or there's more than two sides, because I'll be honest, I lean towards probably more of a pre-wrath, somewhere in the middle of the tribulation thing, but I'm not absolutely hard and fast. It could be pre-trib, it could be post-trib, it could be in the middle. There's just, I don't focus on it, Ralph. It's like, let's just live now and leave it up to God to sort out when the rapture is. Don't make it our main focus.
Well, let me say this. I totally feel where you're coming from, brother, because I am so disturbed at how much cruelty there is from Christians dealt out to each other, their own brothers and sisters, because they don't agree with them on this topic. Guys, it's
so divisive. It's the most divisive topic.
It is. Now, listen, I'll say this. Let me say that we do have to be careful, because we were told, let no man deceive you on this topic. So we do know that we need to study it. We need to try to come up with a view. But where Tony is 100% correct, guys, is that stop the infighting. Love one another and be patient, because look at me. I went from post-trib to pre-trib, and I got my wife into post-trib, and she doesn't even agree with me coming into pre-trib, right? So me and my wife don't even agree on this topic, but we love each other and we respect each other when we talk about it. And that took some effort, by the way, on both of our parts too, to get to that place. And I'm asking you to do that too. My simple thing, I'll just say this on the topic real quick. I totally get the Matthew 24 thing, because when you go and read Matthew 24, Jesus is telling you all the things that are going to happen. And he says, after the tribulation of those days, you're going to see me return. And people, including myself, will say, well, there you go. It's really simple. That and a host of other verses will clearly point to a post-trib rapture. We can't assume that we are not going to be subjected to what millions of Christians in the past have been subjected to, right? I mean, like, we are obviously going to have to go through some garbage too. What has changed my view on it, and I encourage all of you to go study this, is that look at who Jesus is talking to and when he's talking to them, okay? He's talking to them before Paul ever comes on the scene and even mentions the Gentiles being saved. Why do I say that? Why do I bring that up? Because think about it. They're asking Jesus, tell us, Lord, what will happen to us, obviously in a Jewish context, right, before you return. And then he goes into everything. But when you're studying Daniel and Jeremiah, right, when you're reading Revelation, it starts to occur to you, wow, wait a minute. It says that this is the time of Jacob's trouble. It says that this is the 70th week of Daniel. This is a punishment specifically being dealt out to people for not accepting Jesus as the true Messiah. So then the question becomes, well, is God going to keep Christians around to succumb to that type of punishment? If they do, believe in Jesus, if it's the time of Jacob's trouble,
Yeah.
are we subjected to that? And that's the beginning of the journey for me there. So without going into all that stuff,
So
respect
yeah,
each
so I
other,
mean,
because there's
we'll call it. I'll just say my little 2 cents there, and then we'll leave
sure.
it. Because this is where I think the pre-wrath thing comes in. It could very well be that we go through a whole lot of tribulation stuff, but that's not God's wrath. His wrath is poured out in the bowls of judgment at the end,
Balls,
and
yeah,
we could be gone before that. But anyway,
right.
folks, please don't make this a war in the comments, because it's really,
You see how Tony and I just did it? We don't even have the same exact view, but we love each
yeah,
other, right, guys?
exactly. Yeah, that's it.
But yeah. So that was basically the shortest version that I could give you guys on just not being deceived here, not being emotionally led, be spiritually led, walk after the Spirit. Don't compromise your integrity or your biblical values just because you're being once again swept up in the whole "this is the most important thing ever" movement. Do what's right before God. And open your heart to the Lord and your mind, and say, wherever I'm wrong in my scriptural understanding or in my political views, Lord, I just want to go where you want me to go. Please take me there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I guess we're going to have difficult things to negotiate our way through in, however long we are here. And you can obviously see, like you mentioned, the things they're setting up
Oh yeah.
globally, all the WHO, the WEF, the
Hmm.
UN, and all of these agendas,
Yeah. My
which deal,
father-in-law was just debanked for the trucker convention in Canada, right? As an example of that's already here.
yeah,
They're already starting to do these things. You and me, Tony, I don't know what's going to happen for us in the near future here, because we're obviously, going to keep standing for the truth. We're obviously going to keep making movies and videos, and there's potentially going to be a point for you and I and other brothers and sisters in Christ who are not going to have a way to even get any financial support, right?
yeah.
Um, it's coming. It's coming.
Well, the
And
censorship's already there, and it's only going to ramp up. And I don't know how our days are probably numbered as to having the freedom we've got, which is less than what we even had a few years ago.
yeah,
But um,
yep, that's right.
yeah,
Yeah.
you do hear a lot of people, losing their bank accounts, like in the UK and places like that, big name ones, which I think is designed to send a message out to people. If they can do it to the big
Yes.
guys, they can do it to you. Scare people again
Absolutely.
into complying.
Absolutely, that's 100% correct. That happened to me as well in some smaller ways, just on social media sites, where it's like you get bit by that bug too, Tony. Even as a so-called strong Christian representative, like people would look at me as I have my weak points too, where I'm just like, gosh, I don't know if I should post this or say this
Yeah,
because they're just going to do this to me, and I have to remind myself, nope, that's the fear that they want you to have.
yeah,
That's what they're trying to get you used to. It's the frog in the boiler pot,
yeah.
guys. They're slowly turning it up. Now, I say that, but I hope that you guys will recall that I also mentioned that how do you get people immediately on board with a crazy breach of freedom? Through crisis. So that could happen too. I think it's a two-pronged approach that they have here. They have the frog in the boiler pot,
Yeah,
slow, methodical, approach to just getting us to just, like you said, Tony, people don't even remember that 5 years ago, you could have said whatever you wanted on
yeah,
YouTube.
yeah,
And you can't now, right? And
yeah,
we're already used to that in just 4 or 5 short years. Well, I think the next thing that could be is, okay, this isn't happening fast enough according to our Agenda 2030 timeline. Let's crank it up a notch and let's, roll out X crisis and get everybody, especially the Americans, on board. Because again, Donald Trump, who has now been voted in by 80% of the population or whatever, is saying, oh, guys, we have to do this. I'm with you, but look, sometimes you just got to roll it. That's how he was with, what? That's how he was with what in 2020. It's just, going along with this crazy idea that you should do something like that to your body with all these companies with no liability. They wouldn't print out anything on the labels. They wouldn't tell you anything about it. And he himself just admitted to RFK Jr. that for decades he's known that those things have hurt infants and people. He said that privately in a conversation he wasn't necessarily sure was being recorded. So it's just like, guys, wake up. Here we are, and we have to be more spiritually discerning than perhaps we ever have before. Where I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know if it's going to be a crisis or if he's just going to charm everybody over the next 4 years into doing it. I don't even know if he's even going to be the guy who's going to ultimately do it. Maybe he's just a setup guy. I tend to believe that he's going to be a big player because of the Abraham Accords and some other biblical things. But I think that it could just be that he's just a setup guy for the next guy. He is 80 years old after all, and maybe, he's setting up Vance, or he's setting up the next Democrat or Republican president or whoever after that. I just know that there's way too much weirdness now for me to ignore. Well, there's way too many signs.
The thing is, you're going to get whatever happens after the election in a couple of days, you're going to get chaos either way. Because there will be people on either side that won't accept whatever the result is, I'm pretty sure. And, you could end up with rioting and all sorts of stuff, and martial law even declared as a possibility. So,
and you know what? Even if that doesn't happen, Tony, I mean, because there's a lot of rhetoric that surrounds all the elections, and there's a lot of talk about how things are going to be crazier than they actually turn out to be most of the time. Yeah. And I don't want to be one of those people who says, "Hey, everybody, I'm making this video with Tony to prepare you that some crazy crisis is going to happen." It could, and it certainly seems like it, but I don't know, because here's the thing, Tony. Look at what a great job they've done with this slow, methodical way. Look at what a great job they've done, just slow walking us all to the cliff, right? Yes, yeah. Like look at okay, for my fellow Trump ardent supporters, look in his 4 years that he was in office, and we had a deficit of 19 point something trillion dollars, and he gets out and we have almost a $30 trillion, 28 or whatever trillion dollars. That's almost a third of the entire deficit just in the 4 years he was in. That's the most fiscally irresponsible, administration probably to date in terms of how much deficit we've accumulated. So, guys, you are being marched off a cliff. You're being pushed right into an economic collapse. And it's just a trick. It's a game that you've been wrapped up in emotionally, where you really have talked yourself into thinking that somehow when the Republicans, of which I'm one of, get back into office this time, no, I promise, surely this time it's going to be great, right? We didn't do it the last time, but this time we're going to start reversing the deficit, and we're going to put a stop to these things. It's like, guys, let's all exit as brothers and sisters in Christ. Let's exit out of the game. It's Satan's game, okay? He's in control of this world. Who are you fooling? You're fooling yourselves. He's in control of this world. He's the father of lies. There's a reason Jesus called him that. You are being lied to and bombarded from every different direction. The only thing you can do is cling to God's word. Okay, that's the truth. That's where you'll find it. But all this political stuff, I have finally realized at 44 years old, it's a lie, just like every other lie.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Yes.
Thanks for letting me rant so much, Tony.
No, that's all good, Ralph. So, as we close up, have you got any updates on what you're doing with any filmmaking stuff? Just real quick.
Ark of the Darkness, so I'm even doing it now. I'm even actually mispronouncing my own movie because so many other people are doing it. The Ark in the Darkness has now passed 1 million views on my YouTube channel in a few months, so that's fun. We put it out for free, as you know, just because we wanted to just trust that God would bless us and we wouldn't worry about money. And wouldn't you know it, it's the most financially prosperous year we have ever had by a landslide. And so God has absolutely blessed us for that. We're working on the director's cut version now, which will be rolling out sometime late December to early January is when it finishes. Then it goes to Blu-ray and DVD manufacturer, and it'll be available. But you can pre-order it now at sevenfoldfilms.com. It's basically going to have a half hour more of content than the online version does. But if you guys haven't seen The Ark in the Darkness, it's going to blow your mind.
Yeah,
there's
I
a
agree.
reason why.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Tony.
Yeah.
So that's it for me. That's all I got going on for now. So
Awesome. Well, thanks, Ralph. That was an interesting discussion. Lots of food for thought. As I say, people in the comments, please try and be nice to each other and don't turn it into a war. We should we should be.
Sorry, I brought it up. I didn't realize it was going to be so.
That's all right. No, it's all good. Well, thanks, Ralph. That was great discussion. I'm pleased to have had you on today.
Thank you, brother. Yep. God bless, brother.
Bless you too. And folks, remember to go visit our website, aminutemidnight.com, and subscribe to us if you haven't already done so. And we do run A Minute to Midnight 100% by donations, and if you want to help us, that can always be done at our website too. So that's it for this video, and God bless, and God willing, we'll be back before too long with another one.